Gentlemen, the Morrison County Board of Commissioners will come to order. Please stand and sing the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Morning, Mr. Chair.
Morning, everybody.
Morning, Mr. Chair.
All right, next on the agenda would be additions or deletions to the agenda.
Morning, Mr. Chair. There are two additions to the agenda. The first is a consent agenda item. What didn't make it in the packet that went out were the two contracts for IT that Amy presented last week. One is a renewal with Royalton Police Department, and the second is the addition of the same or similar support to Motley Police Department, billable at $75 an hour. But this allows the county IT department to assist those two police departments within the county. And the,
Go ahead.
I was going to say the second item, so if there's,
Actually, those were the two items.
oh,
Sorry.
and then the second item, Mr. Chair, is to add one event or one item to HHS's report to discuss an event that is scheduled for February 22nd on Lake Alec that is termed Anchor on Ice. And Nate will go further into that when he presents to the board.
What's the wish of the board?
And again, I just want to reiterate on those two for Royalton and Motley, we discussed them last week, so it's not like we're just getting this on our plate here, so we did have a discussion on them.
Very good, Commissioner. What's the wish of the board?
And I'll make a motion for the additions and deletion for the agenda.
Motion made by Commissioner Wincher, second by
I can second that.
Commissioner Casper for the agenda as amended. Discussion? Hearing none, this is a roll call. Blaine?
Aye.
Casper?
Aye.
Wincher?
Aye.
Moran?
Aye.
Myself, Lemire, aye. Motion carried. That wasn't a roll call. Next on the agenda is the consent agenda. Anything anybody would like pulled for further discussion?
Mr. Chair, I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda with the addition that was provided here at the beginning of the meeting.
Motion by Commissioner Blaine, second by Commissioner Wincher. Discussion? This will be a roll call. Commissioner Casper?
Aye.
Commissioner Wincher?
Aye.
Commissioner Moran?
Aye.
Myself, aye. Commissioner Blaine?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carried. Land Services. Amy?
Morning, Amy.
Good morning, gentlemen.
I know.
All right, I've got,
I was going.
right. I have a few items for you today. The first one is to consider the conditional use permit request from Gerald Smoody and Alex Truman for a telecommunications tower. This was heard by the Planning Commission and recommended for approval. And so now here it is for your consideration.
What is the wish of the board?
I'll make a motion.
Motion by Commissioner Wincher,
I can second that.
second by Commissioner Casper. Discussion?
If I may, Mr. Chair?
Yes, sir.
Again, it was last week, I mean, time goes by
Yes.
so fast. We had a couple applications for the planning commission 2 nights or a week ago. I couldn't ask for a better information that the client or that they gave to help get it approved or not approved. It was just tremendous, and I think hopefully Amy can agree with me. They had all their work ducks in a row, and I say there's really not much that even the board of the planning commission could not even override. It's like, wow, they gave really good information, so I appreciate that.
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
Yeah, they put forward a very complete, thorough application and answered all of the ordinance questions. So yes, it was a very nicely done application.
Any other discussion? All in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
All right.
Mr.
Thank you.
Chair, if you're following along in your packet, to sequence these properly, we're going to move to page 90 for the next item, and then we'll move back to page 85.
All right. So, Mr. Chair, another request that the Planning Commission heard last week was the final plat from Gary Hoffman. This also was recommended for approval, and so it's before your consideration now.
Gentlemen?
I'd make a motion.
Motion made by Commissioner Casper, second by
I'll second it.
Commissioner Moran. Discussions?
If I may again, Mr. Chair, again,
Yes, sir.
this applicant just had everything done. Well, I mean, there was really nothing that they did not answer the questions. They did a great job, the applicant did.
Commissioner Moran, did you have something? Good. Anything else? Got a motion, got a second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
All right, thank you, Mr. Chair. The last item I have now, because that plat has been approved, would be the next one is, and that's to enter into the developer's agreement with Gary Hoffman for the development of the roads within the plat that was just approved. The applicant has been provided with a copy of this development agreement, and the Public Works Department has also reviewed this agreement. So now, this would be for the county to actually enter into that developer's agreement for the development of the roads within the plat.
Gentlemen,
I'll make a motion.
motion made by Commissioner Wincher,
I'll second it.
second by Commissioner Moran. Discussion? Hearing none. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
All right, thank you, Mr. Chair, that's all I have.
Thank you, Amy.
Thank you, Amy.
Thank you, Amy. Have a great day.
Thanks, you too.
Thank you.
Next on the agenda, Health and Human Services.
You seen that?
Nate? Morning.
Good morning, Mr. Chair, Commissioners.
Good morning, Nate.
Nathan Bertram, Health and Human Services. So I'm gonna, before I pass on to these two to introduce themselves, we like to do staff intros shortly after they start. However, with the Christmas holiday and whatnot, we missed one new member of our team, and so we thought we're about 2 months into this program, so it made sense to give you a quick, brief update on kind of what we've accomplished in the first 2 months of this new position and do the intro at the same time. And so with that, I will pass it to Jeff.
Yes, good morning. Jeff Bowman, Morrison County Adult Services Supervisor, and I'm here to introduce our new embedded social worker, Ashley Movick. Did I say that? No, I'm sorry. I practiced it and I got it wrong.
That was close.
Yeah,
Ashley Muvick.
Movick. There you go. So yes, Ashley started with us December 2nd. This is a brand-new program. It's a collaborative effort with us and our law enforcement partners here in Morrison County. And again, we're working with all law enforcement, not just Little Falls PD, not just sheriffs, but Royalton, Motley, and Pierce as well. So one of the things that we did come up with, and we have a little PowerPoint to show, just review kind of what we've been doing and some of the efforts that we've been engaged with. We came up with a program name because embedded social worker doesn't really have a good ring to it. So we came up with REACH, and that stands for Response Embedded Assistance Community Help. That really gets to what the program is designed to do. It's meant to assist individuals, to fill in the gaps, to provide assistance so they are no longer needing to have law enforcement response needed, and also to provide that little resource assistance as well. Again, we're piloting this. What we started was with the idea there's going to be a lot of follow-up, but what's happened is Ashley's really been going with officers on scene quite often. She gets called because they've really appreciated the efforts that she's been able to provide and the supports, so that's where her skills and talents have been utilized. Again, we're working on improving our community relations, filling in the gaps, and she spent a lot of time building trust with the law enforcement providers, spending time with them, building those relationships, and then she's hit the ground running ever since. She's been called for crisis services, helping get individuals into hospitals that are needing that level of care, partnering with mobile crisis outreach, helping really get individuals the assistance that they're needing. What we're also looking at doing is making sure there's a reduction of repeat calls, assisting individuals so they're not having to continue to experience the same challenges. Now, she's really designed to assist for welfare checks, mental health calls, homelessness, when an individual is in need of resources, and when you have those repeat chronic calls. There are instances where we follow our standard protocols that include continuing with child protection processes. Law enforcement continues to do adult abuse utilizing the MARC system, and she's also able to assess law enforcement will be able to utilize safety protocols before making sure that we have our embedded social worker come in. And now Nathan will go over some of the statistics.
So, part of this, when we were talking, we set up a number of measures to make sure we were capturing and doing this program well, and serving the community well. This is just some of the initial data. I mean, we're looking at 36 days of work, and so, yes, Ashley is about 2 months in by calendar, but with those holidays in there and the other things, we're really looking at 36 days. And so, in the first 36 days of this program, we've established policy procedure, we've met with all the law enforcement agencies, we've met with our community partners. And still, while doing all that, we've met with over 55 individuals in the community. And so I'll jump around this little infographic a little. So the bottom left, that 55 people, that's the amount of calls that Ashley had gone out on at the time that I put this together. The 42 is those individuals, but a distinct count. So as you can see, there's 13 individuals that we've seen more than one time. And so when we talk about those repeat calls, those are one of our target areas. However, I can't give you a formal evaluation if we've reduced that in 2 months. I think, we need to get probably 6 months of time and then look at the 6 months prior before we can really say definitively. But the system is there built to be able to track that, and so we do plan to come back to you and share that. We also are counting by month the amount of people we saw. As you can see, December with the holidays, she just started, lower month, but January already, which isn't done, we're over 40 individuals or 40 call-outs that we've gone on with our law enforcement partners. The top right one that says law enforcement agency, again, so that gray is Little Falls PD, the black is Sheriff's Office, the little tan colored one is Royalton, I believe. And we have had contact with Motley and Piers as well, just no specific call outs with them yet. We've also engaged Mobile Crisis in some of this, and I think that's another benefit of this program for the community is really getting Mobile Crisis down here in homes on a regular basis, as opposed to just people going to the emergency room where they think they should go to get those services. The co-response thing, that's kind of smack dab in the middle, so that's when we go out with law enforcement or if we go out by ourselves. So we're tracking that as well, and then the rest of it is more kind of demographic stuff that we plan to just kind of keep track of, and maybe it'll lend itself to a report later at this time as far as housing status or race, ethnicity. Questions on that data?
Nate, if you could just give me an example of when Ashley would respond with a law enforcement agency and when she would not respond with them. If you would do that for me, please.
Well, two things, I guess. So one's gonna, Ashley's one person, so, we get her 8 hours a day roughly, and that's the core Monday through Friday of the week. So if the call's within that time and it's fitting and it's beneficial to law enforcement, she certainly might be called to go out with them at that time. Some of these other follow-up ones are really gonna be more, maybe she's already tied up at another call, so she can't make it out to something right away, so maybe then she follows up later that afternoon, the next day. Or it happens evening hours or some other time when Ashley's not available. And so law enforcement, we've been working with dispatch and figuring out LETG systems so we are aware of those calls, and then Ashley will be following up with those on her own accord within the next day or two, depending.
Very good, that makes sense. Any questions, gentlemen? Commissioner Wincher?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. To follow up with Commissioner Lemire on the schedule, I know you did say she does ride along with the police or the sheriff's department, which I think is great. But if a call comes in at 2 in the morning, obviously she's not gonna be, and that they have to maybe take the person to emergency room, whatever, there's so many different ways they can do. Then who determines whether Ashley should get involved with this after the fact? Is it the hospital, is it the clinics, is it the sheriff, the police? Or is it her that she goes, maybe she'll look at the police reports and say, yeah, we had 2 emergencies that night. I don't know if you could respond to that, please?
So I think there's a couple different ways, and I think Morrison County has done a nice job being innovative and looking at some things prior to me even getting here. And so we already have a social worker that is at the clinic and hospitals. And so Ashley is one more member of this team between our intake team and our already ongoing case managers. And really that response might depend on who's best suited. Individual goes to the emergency room doesn't keep him, he goes home, or she goes home. Ashley might follow up. If the person's still at the hospital, it really might be, that clinic social worker who's picking up point. And that really allows us to be flexible and use our time and resources wisely. So I know I answered the question, but it really kind of depends on the situation. I guess I wouldn't say it's a black and white thing.
Well, I sit on Northern Pines Mental Health, so that's why I know they work together in different ways, but I just wanted to, because, again, thank you, Ashley. I know you got a real easy job, and I'm saying that sarcastically, so you deal with all different kinds, so thank you for that.
Commissioner Blaine?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. First of all, I want to say welcome to you, Ashley, and our first opportunity to meet you and welcome you to the county family here. I was, as I look at this and this board has been very supportive of this position and this, we're trying to make a difference across the county, across the communities and that. So understanding that and understanding the, a little bit about the position in the sense that, as Jeff and Native said, you're kind of a unique individual with your work. Can you share with us any experience that you've had prior to filling into or sliding into this position? Either with law enforcement or with social work, if you could share that with us.
Absolutely. So I graduated from Iowa State University, and I, from there, worked with homeless youth, and then got promoted through that organization and did outreach for homeless youth in the city of Des Moines. So I would go out under bridges, into homeless camps, into homeless shelters, and look for specific homeless youth and work with them directly on their needs that they had at that time. From there, I was promoted for the 3rd time within that organization to implement and create a shelter specifically for those youth. And so we got that running, and I assisted the youth who we were finding off the streets to have the shelter for 30 days, and I would work with them on getting them, again, their needs of housing, food, all their basic needs were met through that case plan. From there, I did child protection in Detroit, Michigan. And then from there, I came back to Minnesota, and I worked for a county in southern Minnesota, and I did adult mental health, so I oversaw a majority commitment caseload. And then from there, I moved up to this area. My family moved up here, and I worked in Todd County doing a similar role to this, working with law enforcement. And then now that is what led me here.
Fantastic. Your background is very diverse, and you obviously have the wherewithal to walk into places that most people may find a little bit uncomfortable, and have carved yourself a niche into making a difference out there. I have one more question, Mr. Chair, and I'm gonna look to maybe to Mr. LeBlanc, or I see we have the sheriff back here, but in talking about this and talking about the work that you do and the individuals that you see, makes me want to ask the question, what the relationship with, would be with or to our county chaplain. Is there a crossover of work? Is there, I would assume there has to be some interaction there at times in that field of work. And I'm just curious about that, if there is a connection of work there with individuals and with these positions. And I'm not sure if that's a question for you, Matt, or to the sheriff.
Thanks, Commissioner. I'll defer to Sheriff if he'd like to answer, otherwise I can give you my thoughts.
I'm sure there's gonna be a crossover at some point, I don't know if there has been, but you're right there, Commissioner, there's gonna be calls where there's gonna be crossover, but having Ashley in our office and our chaplain in our office, and those communication lines open, that's gonna happen, and they're gonna work together, but as far as the 30-some days she's been here, I don't know if that's happened.
Okay.
And Mr. Chair, I would assume, and the business that the sheriff and law enforcement does outside the building, our sheriff does a phenomenal job, and I have little involvement in that, but they bring two separate skill sets. Ashley has the social worker side of things, and our chaplain a spiritual side of things, and basically the situation, what it calls for. And as the sheriff alluded to, there's going to be times where they both are involved, and then there'll be times where one is more suited than the other. So it's great to have these two capability sets to help support our law enforcement.
Very good, very good. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Mr. Casper?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Ashley, on behalf of all of us seated up here, thank you. Welcome aboard. I look around and these guys kind of suck the questions out of me, but it's clear that you're super qualified, and we're so glad to have you on board. We live in a world, you watch the news and you can see this world is struggling bad. And to have someone like you to be able to talk some folk off the bridge and talk them out of the little cardboard shack down by the river, welcome aboard, and God give you wisdom. Absolutely. Thank you, Ashley. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Anything else, gentlemen? Commissioner Winter? Commissioner
My
Winter?
last question to Ashley is, or Nate says 8 hours a day, okay? And you got a little smirk on your face. You're like, you put in more than 8 hours a day. So do you go out on calls during the night? Do you say, hey, you call Nate or Jeff and say, you know what? I'm gonna be free from 11 at night till 4 in the morning. Do you get out there and do that? Yes, no, maybe?
No, not at the current time. Not that we can't explore that someday, but we're 2 months in, and I think we want to build a good, strong foundation kind of with what we got going, and maybe somewhere, if the road takes us there a year down the path, then maybe we explore that. But at this time, we're gonna stick to our core hours and build a good, solid program.
I just want to say, are you done, Commissioner Winter?
Yep, I am.
When you first brought this forth to us, I thought it was a great idea, and I love when Jeff's involved with pilot programs, because, if it works, great. If it doesn't, well, we tried, right? And we always talk about mental health in our community, and we need to do more with mental health, and I know the law enforcement agency, they deal with that on a daily basis, and for some reason, it seems to be getting worse, and 50-some site visits or whatever in 30-some days, that's incredible. That's blowing my expectations out of the water. And I'm excited for you to be here, and we're very lucky to have you. That's all I got. Gentlemen, you got anything else?
Good, thank you.
That's it. Welcome aboard.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jeff.
Thank you.
Thank you, Nate.
Have a great day, guys.
You too.
God bless you all.
No.
Happy birthday.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair, Commissioners, so the second item Matt added at the beginning of the meeting, and so we got to shift gears a little bit. This is regarding a potential cannabis event. I didn't think we would be having this conversation yet in 2025, but here we are, and so I'm going to step us through a little bit kind of the timeline and breakdown and what I know, and then we can have further discussion from there. So we passed our cannabis ordinance on December 17th. Unknowing to us, there was already some initial groundwork being done to have said event. The event is scheduled to be February 22nd at Anchor North. They're gonna call it Anchor on Ice, and that's up in Cushing, Minnesota on Lake Alexander. And Matt, I think, just pulled up the infograph. So they had already started some of the work. We passed our ordinance thereafter for cannabis licensing of events and events in Morrison County. That would be, well, let me just reference. So our ordinance for cannabis events said that all applications must be received by the county 60 days prior. So even had they known about us passing our ordinance, that would have given them approximately 67 days. So they would have had to turn in their application for said event within 7 days of when we passed our ordinance. Whether they knew about it or not, we did not receive the application. My office received an email with this flyer on it. I think it was either Wednesday evening or Thursday. After that, I made contact with Anchor North, the owner, and then as well as the individuals who are setting up this event. They have put some significant planning into it. They're expecting 150 people. They did grab their water surface permit from the sheriff's office. That was the one that was grabbed in November. They did work with the DNR on their fishing event. And so started to sort through this, because again, this is the first time for me as well as all counties in the state sorting through these things. So we sent them the form to fill out if they want to have said event. There's a number of things that we wrote into our ordinance to be proactive as far as security, capacity, insurance, etc. That form is with them now. They told me their intentions are to fill that out and get that back to us still. I also have had conversations with County Attorney Mittendorf because Office of Cannabis Management, or OCM, still does not have their side of things ready. So there's not per se cannabis license yet. But their websites kick everything back to local ordinance if that license is not ready. So conversation with County Attorney Mittendorf says, well, it's really our ordinance that dictates this. So that pushes it back to us to discuss and decide to move forward. Kind of where we're at and what I talked to them about. So there's this 60-day issue because there's no way, obviously, for them to get it within 60 days to us to review. That's one part. The other part is I'm still waiting for their form and their overall plan, I guess, of how they're gonna put this together as far as security, traffic, and whatnot. Once we have that, that will follow our ordinance process, which is to go to sheriff's office and township and the steps to make sure everything is in place. And so before I just open it up for questions in general, I think the one thing that I'd ask you to consider is, do we want to look at waiving the 60 days at this point? That way they can turn in their form and we can move forward or not move forward accordingly. Or if the board chooses not to entertain waiving that 60-day, to some extent, I can call them back and tell them that this isn't gonna move forward, and there's no need for them to continue working on their application process. And so that's kind of the decision before us, but I'm happy to take any questions on the matter.
Gentlemen?
Mr. Chair, what's all involved in the application? What kind of questions are they answering? And the amount of people there, when does it become regulated to where we gotta say, we gotta step in? I mean, 50 people out on the lake, they do it all the time. At what drives to where we get involved?
So I'll answer the second part of that first. So cannabis event really, so obviously they're calling out on the flyer, they plan to have a number of these different vendors selling stuff to public. And to that extent, I would say it's a cannabis event because you have more than one vendor planning to sell at one location to a group of people. As far as our ordinance in regards to cannabis events, amounts of people, we did not write that specifically into the ordinance. So if there was 10 vendors and 40 people, it would still need to follow this process. The only caveat or thing I'll add is if it were to be over 500 people, they'd also be required to do the large assembly process, which is not their intentions here.
So if they plan on having more than 500 individuals, they would have to go for the large assembly permit. How do we prevent them from having 1,000 people there then, if we move forward with this?
Mr. Chair, I don't know that I have a super good answer for that. When I had conversations with them, it sounds like they've done like some golf or frisbee golf events on ice. And that's usually been like 150 to 200 people is what they report. They report they're expecting about a similar crew or crowd, I guess, however you want to say that. You know, I think there's a number of things, you know, the DNR event that they had to get a permit for is also capped at 150, it sounds like. And so there's a couple different levels and thresholds that they kind of have to stay under. And so I can't speak for the DNR if they'll be stopping out and doing a head count, or sheriff's office for that matter. But that's usually the general way, or the general public making a complaint.
I got the ordinance popped up here, and it says, a permit shall permit the event of only the maximum number of persons stated within the permit. So on their permit, they must have to state their maximum allowed, but there's no way for us to track that, because they're not selling tickets, like at the Mud Fest, where we only allow them to sell so many tickets.
Mr. Chair, so in conversation with him, he did mention wristbands. And so, again, I don't have a formal application yet, so I can't say their exact plan other than the conversation. He did reference they've already bought the wristbands and some of the stuff to kind of set up the event.
And today, you're just asking us to waive the 60-day requirement for the permit. If he gets all his stuff in a row, which is a lot of stuff he's got to get going, he's got to get bond liability insurance. Does he have to do a safety plan also?
Correct.
Safety plan, he's got to get EMS. So if he doesn't get that done within the 20-some days, at that time, we can say, no, you're not prepared for this event. What you're asking for today is just to waive the is it 60 days or 60 day to get your permit before you have the event?
Yeah, Mr. Chair, the purpose of today is really to kind of brief you all as the county commissioners, as well as asking, do you want to consider this waiver before we go through all this work of having them put this together?
I mean, I could see why it's 60 days with the amount of stuff that they're going to have to facilitate to get done. But I personally, if they think they can get it done in 20 days, I'm okay with it. But if they don't get it done, we're going to have to turn it down.
And Mr. Chair, if I may, Matt, if you want to help me out, I think, is it February 11th is the last board meeting before that date? So if that is correct and me calling out that date, I would say they would have to have all their information into us prior to that for it to be reviewed at the February 11th board meeting.
Very good. Just as long as you let them know that, they have to have their ducks in a row by February 11th. What's the wish of the board on this?
Oh, I have a question.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay,
Sure.
if you can, Matt, can you go back to 4.21, please?
Oh, you got it up.
All right, so, it says, no person shall permit maintain, promote, conduct, advertise, act as, we can read all that whole thing. Permit to such an event has first been secured in accordance with the provisions of this ordinance. And the provisions, I'm assuming, are what's underneath it. Am I not correct?
Yeah.
So and then it says they can sell it? Is that what they're planning doing, selling it to people there? Are we to that point that they can even start selling cannabis in our county? And I'm gonna, maybe to you or we got Amy here, I don't know, that one throws me a big curveball.
Mr. Chair and Commissioner Winter, so two parts to that. So yes, technically they are in violation of this ordinance as written. And whether that's from them not knowing or us not pushing it out enough or any combination of that. But yes, I would agree that they are in violation of the ordinance as written. The second part, yes, these low potency hemp vendor retailers can sell. There's registration through MDH and a process for that. And it's my understanding that these are the individual vendors that are planning to be there.
Well, and if you want my opinion, I would definitely be against this, because the fact that if we, again, it's no different than a variance board, or if they come for a permit, each one has to stand on his own. I'm not gonna let ignorance be something that, hey, we didn't know about this here. 60 days, and again, I think we're putting ourselves out there for some liability, because again, they have not even secured an application for us, and I would vote against this here. Even allowing them to move forward as of the 22nd. That's my opinion.
Commissioner Blaine?
I'm trying to go back to the reason we're under consideration, and that's the 60-day issue. Whether we respect the 60 days or waive the 60 days. And I have to beg you to go back to help me understand. So 60 days is in our ordinance. I'm trying to, can you help me understand that relationship between this and the state? You said that were working on this at the time, or working on this idea, concept, or even application at the time that we were passing the changes to our ordinances back in December. But since, correct me if I'm wrong, since the time that we passed our ordinances to help us regulate this issue in the county, the state has now pushed the pause button, and they have not come out with their rulemaking or their direction on how the state will look at regulating the cannabis industry. Is that correct?
Yes, I believe so. So my understanding, looking at this specific issue or event or whatever you want to call it. So the Office of Cannabis Management is supposed to have a special event license. And that license type allows whoever the organizer is to set up cannabis event, similar to what we're looking at today. The state hasn't finished their licensing process. If you go onto their website, they've essentially punted it to counties and said it's a local ordinance issue until developed. That was kind of the conversation that I had with County Attorney Mittendorf, and we certainly can pick that conversation up and have some further discussion on that, but he essentially said it would fall to our local county ordinance then to govern said event.
And thank you, that's how I understood the earlier part of your presentation. So it leads me to two areas of concern, and that is if we, even though we may technically have the ability to grant or regulate activity like this, we still, at some point in time, will have to be in line with what the state of Minnesota puts forth, which we don't know what that is because they haven't finished their work on
Isn't that
this.
ironic?
Yeah. But so, Mr. Chair, to that point, my concern is we allow something to happen that sets precedent within the county, and then have to explain to individuals, groups that may come to look to duplicate what was just done, and we have to go and tell them no, and they come back and say, yeah, but it was allowed here. And that's the difficulty with that word precedent. I'm not, and so the risk of going there weighed against whatever. I'm trying to find the potential benefit in my mind to weigh the risk versus the reward in allowing this to happen. That's a big one for me on this right now. The other question I have is we don't allow for consumption or sale in public places, correct? Or there's limitations on public places where cannabis activities are to be held. And I apologize, I don't have my ordinance folder in front of me here. Where I'm going with this, I'll cut to the chase. Where I'm going to this is that lake is public property. If we allow something like that to happen on an event like that to happen on that lake, how do we not have children exposed or others that we would like to protect in this manner? And I don't necessarily expect you to answer that question. So this is a little bit more rhetorical, but it goes back to where I have to lean in the direction of Commissioner Wincher. I'm not sure if I'm comfortable waiving 60 days. I don't care when somebody started this. I'm not sure if the county is at that point in time where it's in our best interest to allow things to happen before the oversight that we know is coming gets here and kind of sets the fences or the guidelines out there. Mr. Chair, that's
Thank
my
you.
thoughts on this
Thank you,
at
Commissioner
this
Lane.
point.
Commissioner Casper?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yeah, and my view is really no different than Commissioner Blaine here. You know, this whole ordinance with the state, they put the cart before the horse, and the county would fall into that same trap, I'm afraid, putting the cart before the horse. That precedent there again that's being set, I don't think it's worthy to step into that trap because it can come back to haunt us. One thing Morrison County has been noted for is being orderly. And if we're not orderly, chaos jumps right in and takes advantage. And I even think about our sheriff's department. This would catch them a little bit off guard too, to all of a sudden, you know, by the way, in 3-4 weeks, you better get ready. There's a big event coming. I think it's just not, I don't think it's appropriate. Thank you. Thank you, Nate. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
I think you got your answer, Nate.
Mr. Chair,
Yeah, Commissioner Rand.
have you talked with the sheriff on this?
Mr. Chair, Commissioner Moran, yes, I have talked to Sheriff on this matter as well. Really our ordinance is set up to kind of mirror large assembly process anyway, and so there's a number of us who are, as department heads, who are involved in that once application or word of an application comes in, and so there's been several touch points across the departments here. The only thing I was gonna ask, as a finished, do we need a formal denied
Mr. Chair,
action? or-
if the board's wishes are, and we hear the wishes, but if we took a motion to approve or to allow or to waive the 60-day requirement, then the vote could be cast and then we'd be able to offer the board's position to the vendor.
If I may.
Other- yeah.
if I
Otherwise,
may,
we
Mr.
could
Chair-
just follow the ordinance.
Is
I
that,
believe.
okay, but if we follow the ordinance like we do, Mr. Chair, what are the consequences? Is there gonna be, they can continue moving forward because they got the application to you? That's where I'm a little gray.
They'll never be able to have it at that time that they're advertising. It'd have to be 60 days after they request the permit.
They won't be permitted.
Yeah.
So if it's not permitted, then what happens?
Mr. Chair, Commissioner Winter, I don't know exactly. I mean, that's really gonna fall to Sheriff's Office and County Attorney Mittendorf to kind of navigate some of that.
Does their Frisbee golf require a permit?
My understanding is their water surface permit would already cover the Frisbee golf, the concert, and the fishing event. So then it just becomes the other aspect of it that would not.
Mr. Chair, another point to make, I think, is CBD has been around the county, the state for a long time. Hemp has been, and that is licensed and regulated. And it's, to my knowledge, not one retail license has been given for cannabis yet, correct?
That is my understanding, yes.
So if these guys changed it and said it's not a cannabis event because they can't be selling it, if they said it was a CBD hemp event, would that, where are our rules and regulations on a CBD hemp license?
Mr. Chair, Commissioner Moran, so I think I'd have to discuss with County Attorney Mittendorf. We did include low-potency hemp cannabis derived events within our ordinance, and so in my mind, again, this is have to be run by County Attorney Mittendorf. In my mind, whether it was a hemp derived cannabis event or just a cannabis event, I think it would still need to follow this ordinance. But again, we'd need to run that by County Attorney.
Commissioner Blaine?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Nate, I guess the question I have now is from a legal perspective, and this may be another question to the county attorney, but I think so that we have the understanding here too, do we have the legal ability to not permit cannabis activities, even though the state of Minnesota has kicked that back to the counties? Could we legally, in legal standing, could we take the position that we are not going to license or permit these kinds of activities to take place within our county until the state comes forward with their rulemaking?
That's a good idea.
You know, I'm looking at this from the legal perspective, because I would not want to put us in a position where we have to be litigated.
Mr. Chair, Commissioner Blaine, I don't know that I have an exact answer for that. I think we'd have to talk to the county attorney. It's kind of a gray area a little bit because technically it's not illegal under the state, but there's supposed to be a licensing requirement that doesn't exist yet in 2025. As far as what the county attorney or the sheriff might be able to charge somebody with, essentially, if they have the event, we can charge them through our ordinance at a local level. I don't know if there's state statute that's gonna be applicable there.
I'm just, and thank you, but, you know, I'm just looking at, if individuals could challenge us for not permitting them, if they, you know, if they were able to cross all the Ts, dot all the Is in a timely fashion. So in other words, I'm not necessarily looking only at the issue in front of us on the table, but others potentially that we may have to address or come across our desk in this window of time between now or December 12th, when we passed our ordinances, to that point in time where the state finally finishes what they need to do, I will say, and get us the state guidelines on what will happen with this issue.
Commissioner Blaine, I think that's something we can have Matt look into or Nate look into, but if we could stick to this issue on your feelings on moving forward with this one, so we can move along.
Mr. Chair, are you looking for a motion or a direction from, if you are, even if you aren't, I'll just say, I will make a motion that this board would not waive the 60-day
Motion made by Commissioner Blaine to deny waiving the 60-day requirement for the permit.
I would second that.
Second by Commissioner Casper. Discussions? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
Thank you, commissioners, and I will be in contact with the vendor.
Yeah.
Can you look into what Greg was saying?
Yeah, there's several aspects of this, I think, that need more review, but.
If we could get, I think it would be helpful for the board, if we could get correspondence, especially from our county attorney on a couple of those issues that I just mentioned there. I just want to make sure that we as a governing body we're doing things that we can defend as being proper and procedural.
It's ironic, the state pushes down dates and timelines for us to facilitate and be done with, and they don't meet their
And
own.
ignore it themselves.
Yep.
And if I may, Mr. Chair, we have our land services director here too, so I'm sure her mind is thinking too on something that we can do here, because again, there's a lot of questions, public land, if somebody wants to come to the fairgrounds down the road and start selling, that's public. Heck, what's the place in September here, they can sell them at the, Arts, I mean, there's so many different avenues that we're probably gonna, and again, we all knew this last year, that this is gonna be a challenge for the county, so.
Commissioner Moran?
Nate, there is laws already about smoking in public, and doesn't that go in line with smoking cigarettes in public?
Mr. Chair, if I may.
Yes, go ahead, Nate.
Yes, Commissioner Moran, most of that falls under that Clean Air Act, and that's the one that kind of says you can't be within X feet of a public door or a school or playground. This would fall under the same, any cannabis use.
Very good. Thank you, Nate. Thanks for
you.
bringing up that point, Greg. Next on the agenda, Public Works.
We're stepping up. It's a no-brainer.
Morning, Tony.
Good morning, Mr. Chair. Good morning, Commissioners.
Good morning, Tony.
I have a couple items for you this morning. First, we're going to review our 2025 transportation program. So right in front of you there, there's a list of all the roads that we anticipate touching this year. If you go to the next one, Matt, you can kind of see a map. And I'll go through them with you. So we have a spread shot across the county this year. Wide variety of projects, a little over 11 million we're anticipating of construction that we're doing. So we're going to be working on our CASA 1, so just north of our CASA 5 up to our County Road 203. That's going to be a reconstruction project. Our CASA 46, we have a few different box culverts that will be going into place along with a cattle pass. And that contract was already let back in November. We've awarded that to Marvin Treader, so that'll be taking place this summer. Also included in that, we're partnering with Boo Township. We'll be replacing one of their deficient bridges with the box culvert that was included in that contract. As we keep moving along there, we have a variety of paving, so we're gonna have 3 different paving contracts. The reason for that is we have a variety of funding, some federal funding, some local funding, and then some state aid funding. So on our paving front, we'll be working on our CASA 11, our 14, our 202, our 203, our 237, our 238, our 245, and then we have a joint project on our 256, and then Township Road 160th, the joint project with the Little Falls Township, excuse me. And then we're also partnering with MnDOT. MnDOT has a variety of work inside of our county this year. They'll be working on Trunk Highway 238, Trunk Highway 25, but we're partnering on the 238 section just north of Upsala there. And we'll be doing our 228 and their 238 intersection. That'll be a reconstruction project. That project was let last fall, and we just had a cost participation in that. Any questions on our 2025 construction program?
Commissioners?
Excellent. All right, so with that, we had a bid letting last week on our CASA 1. This is our second contract that we've had a letting for this year. The CASA 1 bid abstract, if you go to the next page here, you'll see where it is. This is from CASA 5, going north of County Road 203. This is a reconstruction project. This section of road from CASA 5, actually all the way north to Pillager, has deficient shoulder width and structural capacities. So we're taking our first step at building this road up and bringing it up to state aid standards. This section of road is just over 4 miles, and it'll be a reconstruction, so we'll be doing a shoulder widening, so we'll be adding paved shoulders and a little bit of gravel shoulder, and slope flattening, bringing it up to standard. We had 4 bidders on this. The bid numbers came in very nice. Really appreciate everyone's participation. So our bids range from 2.4 million all the way to 2.7. We actually had an engineer's estimate just shy of 3 million at 2.9. So our low bidder came in at 19.24% underneath our engineer's estimate at $2,420,251.74. Our staff has reviewed all the bids. It is a responsible bid, and we'd recommend awarding this contract to Anderson Brothers.
Commissioners?
Mr. Chair, I'll make a motion that we approve contract 317.
Motion made by Commissioner Blaine,
I can second that.
second by Commissioner Casper. Discussion? Hearing none. This will be a roll call. Commissioner Wincher?
Aye.
Commissioner Moran?
Aye.
Myself, Lemire, aye. Commissioner Blaine?
Aye.
Commissioner Casper?
Aye.
Motion carried.
Mr. Chair, that's all I have for you this morning, unless there's any questions from the
Thank you,
board.
Tony.
Good job, Tony, thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Have a great day.
You too.
Yeah, enjoy your day.
It's gonna be beautiful, but windy.
Windy is right.
Administrators report.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just one item, received correspondence from the Department of Human Resources, Department of Human Services. If I may read that to
Yes.
the board. So it was addressed to the chair at time, or last year's chair, Commissioner Wincher. But dear Commissioner Wincher, it is my pleasure to commend you and your staff for perfect performance in meeting the Department of Human Services financial reporting requirements for calendar year 2023. All key quarterly fiscal reports for programs your county participates in were submitted to our Financial Operations Division on or before the report deadlines in perfect order. This effort required submission of 32 major reports covering 4 calendar quarters of 2023. And then I'll skip to the last paragraph. I know this accomplishment requires planning and efficient operation and teamwork within your county Human Services Department. The result is timely revenue for your county and compliance with federal reporting for us at the state. Please congratulate your management and staff on this superb effort. So So just a good report back from Morrison County, and I just want to share that with the board.
If you could share that with the team, that we're very much appreciative of this.
Derek would be the head of that effort, correct?
Eric Wood, that's correct.
Yep.
Give them 2 thumbs up.
Got it.
Yeah.
That's all I have for the board. Any questions, Mr. Chair?
Committees, reports, and upcoming schedules.
The dates I have for you today are February 2nd or February 15th.
2nd to the 15th.
No more Jeff. Mr. Casper, you want to start off, or?
I can.
All right.
Okay, 2nd to the 15th. Well, Tuesday, February 4th, 8:30, we have the planning session right here. On the 6th, on Thursday, I have a virtual meeting for Central Minnesota Council on Aging at 10 o'clock. On the 8th, no, I have that written, that's actually the 7th, I have the wrong day written there. But on the 7th, we have Public Works over with Tony and Company at 8:30. And then jumping down to February 11th, on Tuesday, we have a Teams board meeting. I gotta see what else. We have Autumn Hills at 1300, they're having a tour over at 180th Street, Holdingford.
Yeah, I don't know why that popped up as Holdingford, but it ain't Holdingford.
Yeah, that should
Okay.
be,
What is it actually?
that's,
Highway 27 or-
Parker, that's Parker Township,
Okay,
180th Street in Parker Township.
thank you.
That's on what date?
That is on the 11th, and that's at 12 o'clock? 12 o'clock, I think. Oh, no, I'm
One.
sorry, I apologize.
That's at
1.
Autumn Antlers.
1 o'clock, yeah.
Or Autumn Hills,
Autumn Hills.
Autumn Hills, yeah, I call it.
yes. And then, we did have a cancellation. Greg and I were to meet along with Nate up at Wadena on Wednesday, February 12th, for the Morrison Todd Wadena County Health Board. That has been canceled as of yesterday. That would clear my schedule to that point. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Commissioner Casper. Commissioner Wincher?
Sure. With that, I believe there's no planning commission or board of adjustments on Tuesday night. We don't have any for that night, so that's taken care of.
On the
And
4th?
Yep.
On the 4th, there's no PC or BOA, just to clarify. On the 10th, everyone's invited to the Quad County Extension at 10 o'clock, and that's at the Stearns County Center. It's over by Mills Fleet Farm. And so that's the Quad County. Otherwise, that takes care of me.
Commissioner Moran?
Just one on Wednesday, the 5th. I'll be attending the drainage conference, ditch drainage in Alexandria.
Okay, 10th, I got the Yellow Ribbon Committee meeting, 3:30. On the 12th, where's Jenny at? Oh, on the 4th, I got a meeting with Jenny Sanders with Vice Chair Blaine to discuss the breakfast for employee breakfast, appreciation breakfast.
What day is that?
The 4th, after our planning session. And that's all I got. Commissioner Blaine?
I can't add, I can't add a thing, and I didn't even use all my words up yet. So,
It's because I,
Good one, Greg.
so, no, a very good 2 weeks coming up.
And if I may, Mr., just to clarify, it's 1 o'clock on Tuesday at Autumn Hills, correct?
yes.
All right, thank you.
Anything else, gentlemen? Hearing none, meeting adjourned.
All right, good job, Mr. Chair.
Yes, thank you, Mr.